Sahar, and you're watching Rethink with Sahar. So, this is a platform where we rethink ideas, we rethink thought, and we rethink things. And we try to think from a new angle, a new perspective, and look at things as as we want them to be in a newer light. So today we have among us Dan Pelly. Welcome, Dan. Dan calls himself a warrior. That's what is written on his shirt as well. And
Warrior, yes,
yes, warrior, a suicide warrior. Dan,
yes.
when did this journey begin?
Mm. I think from the day I was born. No. Anyway, but I appreciate you having me on, Sahar. And, it's always good to do interviews and whoever's listening, because it only takes that one person sometimes to shift their thought and shifts our thoughts too. But the journey really started about the suicide issue, which I never had any problems with suicide at all until I
Uh-huh.
was 39 years old. I got a divorce, lost a business, moved. I never, I recommend doing three major things at once, obviously, because it's devastating. Life factors come at you, and it can really put you in a depressed state. So I suffered some depression when that happened back in, way back in the late 90s in my first divorce. And it was, a long marriage, 11, 12 years, but lost everything, moved to Florida, got depressed, and started feeling more depressed. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Maybe I'll just shake this off. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps, be tough. You're Italian, be tough. You can get over this. Wasn't that way. It was weakening me. The suicide ideation started coming into my life. I was
Mhm.
scared about it, went to see a psychologist saying, I'm having these thoughts.
Oh,
It lasted for a good 8, 9 months, and it got more severe, more clinical as I
oh,
was going on, and I was really out of my sort because there wasn't a lot of help back in '96. Like it is today, and the internet, and you get inspired, and all the things going on. It's good and bad. The internet, it's a blessing and it's a curse, but it helps. Good and bad and evil, like in the world, it never ends. But
everything goes
anyway,
together. Yeah.
so I got to that point where I made an attempt. I don't like to talk about the details too much because I don't want to trigger anybody, but it was excruciating to make that decision. It had nothing to do with being a coward or being scared.
Oh,
I was really in a lot of pain and the suffering I was going through, and I just wanted to end the pain, no more pain. And one of my statements I have made is that suicide, they're not killing themselves, they die by suicide because of
die.
they die by suicide because of the illness that happens in your body, your mind, and everything. And I always say now that, you know, suicides um suicides like not a cowardly act, it's a suffering act.
It's a suffering.
It's a suffering act. And I survived. I'm lucky I survived. And I wasn't going to do much with suicide prevention. I was just trying to heal myself and get better after what happened. I never want to go back there, I said. And I was on medication for a good year and Zoloft, I was keeping myself safe, psychologist, the psychiatrist, really got some good people in my corner to help me and really balance my life out. I come out of it. I moved back to Boston. Long story short, I met another woman, three kids, three little stepkids, started another family, started another real estate business. Boom, I was off and running again. Life was going good again. And
Mhm.
never say never. So we bought a house early 2000s. I wrote a program. I went to Bunker Hill Community College in Boston for associate's degree. I wrote a
Mhm.
33-page program in 2000. Never did anything with it. I loved it. It was all about prevention, a lot of statistics, and I'm going to go out and conquer the world. I'm going to be another big inspirational speaker, and I'm going to save a lot of lives. So didn't do much. Met the girl, got married in the house. So everything changed. Now you're running a family and you're running the business again. You got no time to do the program. It kind of got put in the back burner. Unfortunately, my stepdaughter was 7 when I started raising her. When she hit 16 until 7, she got in the wrong car, almost got killed in a car accident.
Ah,
She took a
sorry.
traumatic brain injury, rocked the whole family. She's still alive, doing very
Ah,
well. You know, you
Uh-huh.
would never know talking to her. She suffers with a TBI. She's 34 years old now. You know, time flies by, but that those 7, 8, 9, and 10 years, you know, getting her back on her feet, being a warrior for her, you know, really getting her going again. And, you know, suffers some issues, left peripheral's gone, good attitude, suffers short term memory, you know, not going to be the lawyer she wanted to be. She even said she wanted to be president. You know, wonderful. She inspires me actually every day. I think about anything that she's been through that it
Yeah.
should, she's a warrior, you know. But she survived, and we were blessed that she did. And but you know, once we got her back on her feet, come 10, I'm like, what am I doing with my life? My program's been on the back burner. I'm not doing what I want to do. Yeah, I'm back in real estate. I know how to do that job. I run companies. I run people now. I value for lenders. I'm still doing the real estate business, not as much as an office, but valuing for lenders. But I'm very busy. Got 11 people working. So you
Mm-hmm.
know, I've gotten all these, you know, these good fortunes. I've gotten all these benefits. You know, so back in '8, I had a woman that was practicing Buddhism with the SGI and chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And I said,
Wow.
"Well, you know, I said, I'd like to look at this and do it more." She actually planted the seed in early '90s when she worked for me, but I never took the practice on. When I was in the hospital in '96, she told me to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. It will protect you. Never really took the practice on. Come
Mm-hmm.
'08, she planted the seed back then. Come '08, I'm like, she goes, you need to meet a male figure in this practice then, because you've only talked to me. Met a great guy, Steve, and he encouraged me that this will help your life. This mantra, this chanting, this will raise your life condition. Well, I started practicing in '08, '09, but it wasn't, you know, it was helping me a little bit, but I was getting more depressed again about what happened to her. So as
Uh,
I'm practicing, of course, they say the devil's functions are attacking you. They don't want you practicing. Keep practicing. So I suffered a lot in front of the Gohonzon and chanting and doing what I was doing. And I kept at it, though. I kept studying and I kept chanting. And finally, you know, I got worse and worse, and I got clinically depressed again. And
oh.
I made a second attempt because I felt so worthless that I couldn't save her. Can't save an accident, obviously, but you feel bad about everything. You know, that this happened to her. I'm not doing my business in the real estate. I'm doing, but I'm not doing the suicide. Now, where am I at? I was totally deflated.
Mm-hmm.
I made a second attempt, not as severe, and that was in 10. I was still practicing. So I make determinations. I'm going to chant to get off medication. You know, I survived that. It wasn't as severe, but it could have been. And
Mm-hmm.
it devastated my immediate family, obviously the whole family, but I said never say never. So I was really ashamed and the stigma and the guilt, and it was just overwhelming because I was
Wow.
always strong and you know, tough guys, and we grew up and had nothing to do with toughness.
Especially for
So
the men. Yeah.
especially for the men, you know, they don't want to say they're feeling weak and that they're suffering. You know, it's a hard thing for men to say.
For the
And I always
society.
encourage men to reach out for help because we're always, you know, more statistics towards men because they take more devastating means. You know, women survive more, although they attempt more than men, they survive more. Men
Wow.
attempt less, but they're more successful because of the, you know, unfortunately successful because of the, you know, the drastic means they might take. Um, so anyway, I chanted to be off medic. I was on 3 or 4 medications. I'm trying to keep it as short as possible just to get through my
Mhm.
story a little bit. Then you can ask me questions, you know,
Yeah.
after I'm finished.
That's an
But anyway,
interesting.
I got to that point, and I said, I'm going to chant for get off this medication. I want to feel my feelings. I don't want to be numb all the time. Although it was keeping me safe, and I'm for medication to keep you safe, but you got to deal with your problems, your childhood problems, father issues, whatever you're having, whatever's gotten you to this point, whether it's a tragic accident, you know, whatever life comes at you.
Yeah.
So I chanted for a good. I kept chanting. I was already chanting for a couple of years, and I started feeling better, you know. And I got off one med, got down to 4, got down to 3, you know. And I'm, you know, in communication with my psychiatrist. I saw my psychologist for 9 years. Great guy, you know. Just me and because a few psychologists I gave up on, but this guy I stuck with. We just had a good rapport. Didn't stop seeing him, you know, 7 years ago or so, but I saw him for 9 years. And I
Yeah.
always recommend people to have therapy. You know, if you're
Yeah.
psychologically, emotionally problematic and you're having these suicide ideations, you got to get help. You got to go see people. You know,
And
not. not
Uh,
everybody you're gonna like. So anyway, that point of when I chanted down, now I said by the end of 2011, I want to
mm-hmm.
be med free. So as I work with these doctors, I was med free by the end of 2011, and I haven't looked back since.
Right.
I don't take any medication. I went to the FNCC in Florida, the SGI, Florida Nature Culture Center, for my first
Mm-hmm.
revival of my faith, whatever, and they had me speak about my experience in front of 150 men about
Wow.
Justine, about my stepdaughter Justine, what happened, about my attempts. I had 30 or 40 guys come up to me after telling me about how suicide happened in front of them, their son, somebody lost someone by suicide. I'm getting all these people opening up to me. So I said to myself in 2012, hey, I might be onto something here. People need help. And I said it up there. I want to help people, and 150 men clapped for me. And I gave my experience as a Buddhist, from a Catholic 50 years to a Buddhist. So I didn't do anything with it, just kept going on with the marriage. So 4 years go by, I hit 2016, and I'm kind of bummed out. I'm not going public, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, when am I going to get the courage? And I chanted for the courage to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So I woke up at 3 a.m. one morning, and the 3 a.m. is hour of the ox or whatever it is, and the
Yeah.
time of 3 a.m.
That's the time
I
for the
said,
chanting and meditation.
you're right. So I said, I woke up and I made my first video. It's a little rusty, but I made my first video saying, I got to do something with this. What the problem was, and we could talk about it, is overcoming the shame, the guilt, and the stigma to talk about it publicly was the hardest thing to do. But once
That's
I did that video, something triggered me in my practice or whatever was happening. My life condition raised to a point where I've been off and running now for a good, 9 years.
hmm. Dan, you must have heard about Albert Camus. He was a French novelist and a writer. And during the World Wars, he wrote that the only philosophical problem of our times is that of suicide. So that is
Yes.
what we need to look at. And one of his books, Myth of Sisyphus, is devoted to this.
Yeah. What was his name again?
Albert Camus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah,
I've heard of it.
yeah. So I mean, I myself, being a bipolar disorder patient,
You
I
are.
go to yes, I am, and I'm not
Okay.
really proud of it, but I'm not ashamed of
Well,
it.
it's
Yeah,
just
because it's a reality. I have to face it.
it's your
You
mental
know,
well-being. It's nothing to be ashamed about, but it's.
this stuff. Because when I remember years ago, I had a friend. She was so much depressed
Mm,
that one of her arms, I don't know which
mm,
one of her arms had started to hurt because of
mm,
some psychophysical uh, effect.
mm,
And she told me that she had done all the MRIs and the ultrasounds and CAT scans,
yeah.
and no doctor could ever find anything what was wrong with
Mm,
her arm. So I just suggested her, why don't you go see a psychiatrist?
mm,
The answer that I got, you'll be surprised by it because such is the stigma about mental health in our
mm,
culture.
mm,
She said, "Do you think I'm a lunatic that I should see a psychiatrist?" Okay, no, I
mm.
don't think so. But you need help. We all need help at some point in our lives.
The times
And
we do. Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm,
so the way you are telling your story that you had family issues, you lost your loved ones, so some people are able to cope with it. Some
mm,
people are not that well at it. What do you
mm.
think about that? About being strong, or is it something more than that, or different
I
than
think
that?
when you listen to other people that talk about depression and psychological and antidepressants is just not the only answer. It's not going to fix. They sell it more and more on TV than ever. It bothers me somewhat because they're pushing a quick fix, and it's not a quick fix. Medication takes time to get into your system. Could take 6 to 8 weeks. You got to get off it gradually. There's a process with the psychologist and the psychiatrist. This is why they are psychologists and psychiatrists. I'm not a medical doctor, but I've learned a lot about process and
Yeah.
taking your time and not rushing things or thinking taking pills is going to change your whole life.
Mm.
Everybody's condition, but I think when it comes to I hate to even say mental illness anymore. I don't like the word mental. It's just I wish they call it just brain health. And I'm always pushing for brain health. So I talk about brain health more than I say mental illness. But when it comes to brain health, it's a combination, like you say. It could be loss of loved ones, accidents with kids, loss of a child. We all suffer. The world is we call it the Sahar world. It's a suffering world.
Yeah.
We're in this at Bodhisattvas, as I am now, as a practicing Buddhist for 17 years, to help that
Mm.
one person I come in contact with. And I met the President K that passed a year and a half ago, 95 years old, and I've been, following him as a sensei and still
Mm.
do, in his teachings through the whole practice of Nisha and Daishonin and all that, he talks about helping that one person. So when they're
Yeah.
suffering, when that person says they're suffering, like you say people handle it better than others. There are some that tolerate it better than others, handle it better. Like when I talked to my older brother about suicide, he goes, I've been down, I've been depressed, but I don't think I could ever go there. I said, well, that's good. Stay that way. But he goes, I'm the type of guy, he said, I just don't think I'll go there no matter how depressed I was. I just never thought about suicide. I said, you're probably 1 or 2, 3% of the population, because 95% of the population has thought about taking their life
Oh, yes. Sometimes,
because of
somewhere.
the economical, the poorness or whatever's going on with people and all these things that come at you in your life. So
Mm.
there's a percentage that would probably never go towards it, and they like my brother didn't understand it. Like, pull yourself up, boots up. Yeah, you don't need medication. Just tough it out. I said, Mike,
It's not.
I can't tough it
Uh,
out. I feel like a truck is running me.
exactly.
I
It's
said I feel like a truck has run me over. I'm so weak, and I'm a strong guy, and I'm 210 pounds, and I played football for 10 years. I felt like I couldn't even lift my head.
yeah, that's
That's how I
true.
was for
That's
days. I
true.
was walking in a
You have
dark cloud.
difficult, yeah, you have difficulty holding your hands.
Because your mind can do a lot to your body. And
Exactly.
I was physically depleted. I couldn't even walk up a set of steps when I went to a recovery program because I finally had to get out of bed in 10 after
That
8 months. After 8 months, I was in bed. And lucky my
that
wife, supported
that
me.
yeah, that
But
completely resonates with me because when I am in my depressive phases, I am like completely bedridden, almost bedridden, 95%.
you don't want to get out of bed. Yeah.
Myself out of the bed. Nothing is wrong with my body, but my brain, my mind does not
Yeah.
help.
Yeah.
So, and
It's
it's
tough.
difficult for people to understand this.
Mm.
The the way it is difficult for us to bear it, it's the same way difficult for others to understand what's going on. Don't you think so? It's like, I mean,
Yeah, like people that are in a healthy state, they look at it like, like if they've never been depressed or suicidal, that you're weak, you don't be a coward, don't try to check out people who have bigger losses than you. I says, let me just say this: when it comes to loss and problems, some things that you hear might be very insignificant to you, no matter how small it is. But for
mhm,
that person, we got to be respectful of our life that is significant to them. So when I'm
exactly.
hearing something and someone says they're suffering over something that I might think is minor, I know it's huge in their mind. And people
Mm,
need to understand that. And this kind of moves people away from try to have a little bit more compassion, which was in Buddhism is big. Try to have a little Jesus too, to have more compassion. Try not to be
every
so try not to be so judgmental of people. When I was
exactly,
younger, of course, when you're younger, you're judging everything. But as you get
exactly.
older and you seasoned and you realize, well, either I'm going to be a jerk in my life or I'm going to be a compassionate person. You know, it's either one or the other. People get bitter and they don't have time for compassion. So
Some
it's
people
a
get
tough,
that way.
it's a tough balance because I did suffer bipolar while I was sick. You know,
Yes,
I had some bipolar going on. What was going on with me? The highs and the lows, thinking I'm gonna, fill a void if I do this, and the
I'm
void was
still
still there,
struggling.
and the void was still there.
Yeah, void is always there. For last 20 years, I'm struggling with this. It's been almost 20 years.
It's tough.
And whole of the prime of my life was gone with this, in this
Mm,
bipolar thing. But then we have to get up somewhere, find a spark, and light up our lives, our own lives, and the lives around us. And that's exactly what you are doing, Dan. That's really great. And how does it make you feel when somebody comes to you, tells you that they have been inspired by your talks, they
mm,
wanted to do such a such act, and but they
mm.
did not do it. They did not harm themselves because they listened to what you were saying.
Well, I've had people approach me. I've lost people, in the years that I was helping, that I didn't know, or through family members, I come in late on their situation, whatever. We can't, like one of my mentors said, you're not going to save everybody, Dan. You're not going to save everybody, but you got to keep going. But
You got
just
it.
one example, I've had many. I had a young man that was watching me on Instagram for about 8 months because you can really get out there, publicly speaking when you're on the internet, where the stigma is getting less and less, and people are starting to understand more that they look at a guy like me, and I just put out a last short about, we never thought he or she would do it. That person, they look at me like, you seem like a tough Italian guy. You wouldn't do that. No, but I
One,
did do it. So it has nothing to do with toughness. But I had a young guy approach me after just about a few years ago. He's on the internet, and he goes, Dan, I just want to tell you, I've been watching your videos for 8 months, and I was very suicidal when I started watching you. But I want to
mm,
tell you, I'm no longer suicidal, and I'm thriving. I'm doing my music, and I just want to thank you for being out there. So I said to myself, well, I think I found my mission. As Buddhists, we find our mission in life. And my father was a charitable person. He helped the seniors, he helped the quadriplegics. He had me around people that were suffering. And
mm-hmm,
he instilled in me. So I give him thanks, always, respect to your parents, good or bad, they gave you life.
mm,
It's been more in my life the past 8 years about him that he really instilled something in me that brought me to this. And
yeah.
and it helps me and it enhances me because he had me around all the charitable work, and it coincides with him, my Buddhist practice, my own, like the sign says behind me. You got to have
Mm-hmm.
determination,
You
and
have to have.
another story, a second story, I'll tell you. A woman, she contacted me on Facebook. Young mother had an 11-year-old daughter,
Oh,
and she said, my 11-year-old daughter wants to kill herself, there.
oh my God.
So it happens with these young kids, the adolescents more and more, especially with the internet and the consumption of, they got to be perfect and all that. So
Yeah.
I listened to her. She was just messaging me. I was hearing everything she was saying. I says, okay, listen to me. I have compassion for what's going on. It's devastating that your child wants to do this. But I'm going to be blunt with you because my father was a very blunt Italian guy.
Mm-hmm.
You need to get up tomorrow morning because it was later in the evening, and you need to go find your daughter a couple of adolescent programs. You need to get her help immediately. I would not
Okay.
wait another day. You know what she said to me?
Uh-huh.
I'm ashamed, Dan. I'm ashamed to reach out that I'm a bad mother. I said, no, 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 no. It has nothing to do with you as a mother. Good, bad, or indifferent. She has some issues going on mentally. Whatever's bothering her, whatever therapy she can get, whatever she needs. And I really encourage her to go get help. And this is what I'm going to leave you with. You need to take this action for yourself.
Exactly.
8 months go by, 10 months go by. I hadn't heard, because sometimes you're helping people and you don't hear from them. And like I said, there was a few people close that some old
Mm-hmm.
friends of my mother's, and their daughter was suicidal for 10 years. I kind of came into the picture late, and she ended up, dying by suicide. And I went to the funeral and all that, and I felt like, why am I doing this? And that's when I went to one of my mentors. I said, I'm a failure. You start feeling like I should have helped her. And I almost helped her because she was like, Dan really inspired me. And she was telling my mother's friend, my mother's no longer around since 2017. This was a couple of years ago. And I said,
Yeah.
and then and then Janet told me she took her life, and she died by suicide, and I was devastated, and I was down for a couple of weeks about it. But the mentor that I talked to, that's been in the practice a long time, he's like, Dan, listen, you're not going to be able to help everybody. This is
Oh
the way it
no,
is. So
we in
anyway, I'll finish with this. The lady sends me over with my Facebook Messenger a picture of her and her daughter smiling,
wow,
telling me, I want to thank you so much, Dan, for encouraging me to get up and get help for her. She's no longer suicidal and she's thriving. And
you
I just started crying because even as a grown man, I was just so happy that that void I think I was missing, that I'm doing something significant here, that daughter's thriving now. So it was very fulfilling. And it really, because I suffered over the young 21-year-old, and then 6 months later, I'm helping this person. And this is why the mentor told me, you can't help everybody, but you got to keep going, Dan.
gotta keep going.
You got to
Yeah.
keep going. So it was that was a couple of issues, a couple of events, interactions that happened that inspire me to keep going.
Tell me something about your presence on the social media. You say you have you're on over 18 social media platforms. So, where can our audience reach you if they need you?
I think if you just Google Dan Pelly, Pelly, when you go Dan Pelly, you're going to find me on almost all the platforms of Suicide Warrior, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. I mean, you can never travel enough to get out as much as I've gotten out in 8 years. You'd have to travel like all the time. But
That's
so
right.
there's I like to speak live because people feel you more when your energy. So when I am speaking live, but in doing any speaking engagements, but yeah, any platform I'm on, I'm always posting, I'm always giving inspiration, making videos, doing shorts, and just revolving it, constantly. So I have a presence the past 8 years. And, before it was like, it wasn't about when I started, I was like, oh, I'm going to be another this one or that one or Tony Robbins. I'm going to be a big time this. And I just moved away from that. I said, you know what it is? You just got to keep at it every day, Dan. And, when I
Exactly.
first got my first video, I made a video, Never Give Up in 16. I got 450,000 views. So
Wow.
it kind of kicked me into gear, and then because at the beginning I was only getting like 1,000 views. So in our Buddhist practice, never give up is a big statement,
Yes,
in
I know.
in in taking determination on. And in this determination is a quote by my sensei about determination. When you make a determination, every nerve and fiber in your body will move towards that success. And if you think otherwise, you're going to fail. So when I kept reading this every day back in 10, when I really took on that paragraph, that statement, and I still have it, but you got to have determination. If you don't have, like, I might have a struggling morning last week that I'm emotionally kind of down, or even me, I'm human. So just because I speak about inspiring doesn't mean I don't get down.
Exactly.
And I think about my last video I did, because I have hope, I have courage. I do all these Buddhist themes of courage and hope, and I mix it in with helping people. But determination is big. And that morning I was feeling down last week. I said, man, you got to get determination. You got to get out of bed. You got to get going.
Yeah.
And because I tell people nobody's going to do this for you. They're not going to do it for Sahar. They're not going to do
You.
it for Dan Pelling. No one's going to do it for you. You might get help and you might get support. And I had a wife that was feeding me and telling me to wash. I still stayed in bed until I pulled myself out of bed and went to a recovery program for about 4 months, climbing stairs. Well, I couldn't climb the stairs at first because I was so weak, third floor, but I was talking with groups of people
Mm,
that were a lot worse than me.
yeah.
And I had a whole newfound respect for brain health, that these people are in a lot worse position than I am, and I'm bad. I feel like an 800-pound gorilla's on my back every day. But I
Hmm.
made friends. I introduced them to practice, and I'm like, helping, and then after 3 months, I felt I didn't need any more, and I walked the 3 or 4 flights of stairs finally without taking the elevator very energetically. But the first time I tried to walk, I only made it up 5 steps and took the elevator because my body was so weak of it really ravages you, depression.
Yeah,
But all
yeah.
these social media sites I'm on that people can get a hold of me and they can message me and I'll encourage them. But I can't do I always tell them, I can't do this for you. You know,
They have to do it for themselves.
you got to go
I
get
tell
help. You got to go to see people. You got to take the action and the determination to do it.
even the Buddha said, "You, I can show you the path, not make you walk on the path. You have to walk on the path." Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
That was a really great conversation, Dan. Thank you for being here,
Well, I'm
and
glad
thank
we
you
flowed
so
through it. It
much.
was good. Sometimes you just go with it and we talk about how to help people.
Yeah, that's right. We will. And I feel like this is the best that one can make of their life. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad it's working for me. That's for sure. But it doesn't
Thank
come
you.
without. But it doesn't come without action. It's
Oh
I
yeah,
have to take. Like this morning, I was kind of moving slow. I've had a long week, and I'm like, oh, I got this interview. Gotta get determined. I'm like, go wash up. You'll fix yourself up. Put your shirt on. Get going, Dan. And then
yeah.
once now that
Show
I've been
up.
talking, and
Get
now
ready. Get up. Get ready and show up. That's all.
showing up is everything. Showing up is, and even when I was getting help, the doctor's like, "You got to show up there. Do you want me to help you?"
That's very much right. Thank you so much, Dan. So we'll see you next week, same time, same
Awesome.
platform.
Thank you so much. Love being on, and never give up. Stay determined.
Never give up. Right. Thank you.